Welcome into Friar Territory, presented by Fox One. I'm Kyle Glaser, alongside the great Heath Bell. Heath, it has been a wild few days. On Monday, Preller held his annual press conference, which detailed some of what went on behind the scenes and what ultimately led to Mike Shildt retiring. And of course, throughout the day, Tuesday and Wednesday, more and more came out. June, Dennis did a great job reporting some of the unknowns that were behind Mike Shildt's retire. It's been a lot. It's only been 48 hours. What's your overall reaction to what has transpired here over the last few days?
Initially, I was just shocked how he ended up leaving, retired, and whatnot. And it was like, oh my gosh. And then the more I think about it, I just think maybe he just, there's two things. One, I don't think he's married. So maybe he just had so much stress of being a manager, as it's a lot of stress, but also I think, the more I think about it, I'm just like, okay, maybe on the good note, maybe he found somebody and he wants to spend some time with them. Okay. And then on the other side, I'm like, okay, where's all this stress coming from? Because, baseball's fun and this and that. But, there's been so many managers under AJ that it's been kind of hard. It almost seems like AJ was controlling all the managers and Mike was a little bit different. But then putting my thinking cap on, I'm kind of like, maybe Mike was just better at concealing it, whatnot. And there was just a lot of stress where he's not really making the decisions and somebody else is, but he has to be responsible for the decisions that is being made. And I know, hey, being a manager, being a coach is tough, because when your players don't perform, it's all on you. It's not the players, it's on you. So I think there's a lot of that and a little bit here and there. Probably we'll never find out behind the scenes, but this reaction was like, whoa, but we just have to move forward right now. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, so Mike Shildt talked a lot about the stress of the job, citing hair loss, chest pains, and getting death threats from people, which is never, ever, ever acceptable. It has become a regular part of our society. Unfortunately, it is not something that should be normalized or accepted. In terms of performance, I've known and covered Mike Shildt since he was a minor league coach and manager in the Cardinals system. I covered him as a Cardinals manager and obviously as a Padres manager. He is very, very passionate about this game. And I want to be clear, he did have a lot of autonomy. He is very, very passionate and he takes losses very, very hard. He takes criticisms very, very hard. Some people are better able to kind of block him out than others. He reads and hears and sees everything. He cares so much about the game and cares so much about winning. And look, he does care about his reputation. The stress of it all, you could see it mounting. And look, I think it was interesting the way AJ Preller phrased it, that it was a surprise but not a shock. Throughout the season, it's very common for people in front offices, coaching staffs to talk about the grind of the season. Burnout's a real thing in this industry. And those conversations were happening. And ultimately, Mike Shildt decided to go home for a week, think about things, and did retire. And I want to be clear. We live in a very cynical world where everyone sees a conspiracy. Everyone sees, hidden, actions behind the official statements. And look, there are some good reasons for it. But we'll get into some of the factors behind his decision to retire. But I want to be clear. Everything I have heard publicly, privately, talking to people, Mike Shildt did choose to walk away. This was his decision. The Padres did intend to bring him back in 2026. He left a lot of money on the table to do it, and he did it on his own accord. So I want to make sure that we establish that from the outset. There are going to be people who don't believe that. That's kind of on them, but that is what happened here. However, we will discuss some of the factors behind that decision, some of which, again, don't shine the best light on Mike Shildt.
Well, see, I've heard that he got fired. I heard that all these different things, but my things are, and like I said, there's stress, and I know he's a good guy. He's a great guy. He's passionate. He loves the game. So that's all true. And I think he just he coached through the minor leagues, St. Louis, kind of over here, the same thing. So therefore, there's a lot of coaching. And like I said, on a good note, maybe he has somebody, and maybe he's just like, this is so much stress on me. I just want to sit back and kind of enjoy life. I've been doing this for what, 20 some odd years.
More.
Yeah.
He's a true baseball lifer. He coached high school levels. He was a scout. He coached the minors.
Maybe he just wants to go, I just, I give it all I have, but this is the time for me to go, yeah, I'd love to win a World Series and then leave on top. So would everybody. But I think he just, this is my really feeling is hopefully he's just like, this is, it's just my decision. I'm just tired. I want to enjoy life. I don't want to be stressed out for the majority of the year because baseball is pretty much a year sport.
Yes.
So that's my take on it. But trust me, I've heard that he was fired.
Yeah.
I've heard that, he's leaving because he can get money. I heard, they kind of pushed him out. I heard, they want a Latin guy. I've heard this and that. And I'm like, I don't think so. I just think the stress of a bunch of things and then him just going, I just want to have fun. I just maybe go coach Little League or something and just see some guys stumble. So
in the absence of hard information, people start filling in the gaps. The reality is he was welcome back as Padres manager. He chose to walk away. But there are some factors behind that. And I think it's really important to assess who Mike Shildt is. And we have talked about this a lot on the show. I've talked about in other areas and written about it. Mike Shildt is in the upper tier of managers in the game from a strategy standpoint, getting players to buy in, coaching the game, in-game management, handling superstars, all the things that go into the day-to-day of being a major league manager. Again, he's not the best, but he's in the upper tier. At the same time, Mike Shildt is notorious for being hard on support staff, coaches, trainers, analysts. That was very, very true in St. Louis. And look, it was an open secret within the industry that's why he was fired in St. Louis. The working environment became untenable. It did not get to the same degree of bad in San Diego, but there were certainly moments and times where similar behaviors occurred. And look, Kevin Acey of the San Diego Tribune, my friend and colleague, did a great job really, reporting deeply on that. Look, everyone has strengths and weaknesses. From, again, in-game management standpoint, Mike Shildt was one of the best. But again, he has always been notoriously hard on support staff. And some of the traits and behaviors that were problematic in St. Louis did arise in San Diego, albeit not to the same degree. St. Louis things got really, really bad, and he did put in effort to get better, and it was better, but it still reverted back at times.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he just, here's the one thing is people have families, there's lives outside of baseball. Maybe for Mike, there was no life outside of baseball. So he expected the work ethic, and I want you to work 3 hours a day and sleep 1 hour a day. And other people like, I got to change my kids' diapers, so, or I need my kids, tennis game or, Little League game or something like that. So I think that's what it kind of takes a little bit when you're hard on your coaches or whatnot. You sometimes forget that people don't work as hard as you do sometimes.
And again, Mike Shildt is unmarried. He doesn't have kids, which is, by the way, the same for AJ Preller. And both of them have that reputation of being, hard chargers and driving really hard and having relentless work ethics, all of which are good things. But there are times they overburden others because they expect them to act similarly when others have other parts of their life that are equally as important as their work. So that is certainly something that needs to be considered. But I wanted to say overall, Mike Shildt did a very good job. He is a good manager. His record bears that out. But some of the flaws and some of the incidents and some of the behaviors that took place in St. Louis did follow to San Diego. And I think the other thing too with him, he would always be very defensive, especially with us in the media, very innocuous questions about, hey, what was behind this decision with this pitching change, this lineup, just the same things that we ask dozens and dozens and dozens of managers. He would get very defensive about things. And one of the things that I always thought and talked about with all my colleagues is it was always kind of a shame because he's a really good baseball mind. He's a really good manager, does a lot of things well, but the defensiveness just didn't reflect well on him. And there were times where it was kind of uncalled for and unnecessary, and really something that only he did, having covered at this point probably close to 100 different managers across all 30 teams. And I think for him, again, stress, high expectations, that certainly played into it, I'm sure. And he did make a point to get better, but again, it happened a lot. So I think at the end of the day, him saying he was burnt out, he'd take a break, didn't surprise me. That jives with some of the things that happened. And look, this is a very, very taxing, exhausting job, especially for someone who cares as deeply as he does and does pay attention to what is said and written about him. Some people are better at blocking them out than others. Some say they do but don't. Some openly admit they struggle with it, and some really are good at blocking it out. He's someone who really takes everything to heart, and that's going to wear you down over time.
Yeah, honestly, I think if you don't have somebody at home to be like, hey, don't read that, or you're not that, because everybody's critical. Everybody, like when I was playing, if I didn't save it, I could say 40 games in a row, blow one, I'm the worst guy ever. But I wouldn't read stuff like that. But my wife would, and it's just like, just let it go. If you don't have somebody to just kind of reinsure that let it go, you start reading everything, and you can't block things out, and all of a sudden you just it creeps up there, and then all of a sudden I think you're defensive, and I think that was what might happen to Mike. But at the end of the day, I'm going to remember Mike as a great guy to talk to. I've talked to him in the past, and I got nothing good things to say. That's why I really say hopefully he kind of maybe found someone and said this stress is kind of there, and man, I just want to take a break and kind of enjoy myself with my new partner, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, yeah.
Again, having the history I do with Mike Shildt, what I will always say is he's a great manager. I respect the hell out of his baseball acumen. He has flaws like we all do, and there are times those flaws came out in a way that wasn't productive. I would also say I think we've all had moments like that. So ultimately, this was his decision, and he's kind of wishing the best in retirement. Heath, I do want to hit on with you. One of the things that Kevin wrote explicitly, and as I mentioned, was kind of an open secret within the industry, is again, being hard on coaches, trainers, analysts, support staff. You've been in clubhouses, you know what the relationship dynamics are like between players to players, players to coaches, coaches to coaches. When you read some of the details about that, just what were your overall thoughts?
Honestly, the first thing that came to motion is I don't think everybody's being honest and truthful to everybody, or there was something not truthful. And then it's like you have to read between the lines. Like, say, if a coach comes to a trainer and say, hey, how is he? He's good. And then finds out he's not good, or, say he can't run, but then sees him run at batting practice or something. And then you start second guessing, and you don't believe them. I think it's just like a domino effect, a snowball effect. And when that's not good, when everybody's not going on the same page, and when there's not trust, especially in coaching staff with trainers or front office, that could happen.
Yes. And look, again, that is definitely something. There were conflicts, there were issues. And again, ultimately, Mike Shildt did cite it on the record as one of the reasons he felt like it was time to step away, among many others. Again, it's been an adventurous few days. A lot of information has come out. I'm sure there will be more. I think it's important, though, to kind of take a step back and assess the big picture and give Mike Shildt credit for what he was good at, which was winning ball games and instilling cultures and making sure teams played clean baseball, and ultimately his in-game strategy. And we can acknowledge the areas that left something to be desired. Every single person has them. And I think it's just important to kind of assess the good, the bad, and take in the whole picture, as opposed to saying something was all bad or something was all good. Because the reality is, in life, there's a lot of gray area in the middle. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, the Padres are now going to be searching for a new manager. We're going to take a quick break and then discuss how attractive the Padres job actually is. Football is back, and so is your shot at big wins. With DraftKings Pick 6, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL, your game day instincts can score you real money. Here's the play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and unlock the upside every snap brings. The better your calls, the bigger your payout. And here's the kickoff bonus. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. This season, play your player instincts. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL. Play just $5. Get $50 in Pick 6 bonus picks. Make the call. Ride the upside. In partnership with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Welcome back to Friar Territory, presented by Fox One. All right, Heath, moving forward, the Padres will now be hiring their 6th full-time manager in 11 years under AJ Preller. There has been a very, very high turnover rate. This is a job with a lot of pros and a lot of cons, like any job. But this is an interesting one, just given you have a team that's coming off back-to-back 90-win seasons, has a lot going for it, but the high turnover rate can't be ignored. As someone who cares deeply about this organization, is connected throughout the game, understands the intricacies of running a clubhouse and a team and everything that goes into it, how attractive do you perceive this job to be?
Probably like a 5 or a 6. 10 is really, you want that job. I've been told from some managers out there that have played for the Padres and they wouldn't want this job. And this is in the past. So like probably just, 4 to 5 years ago. So it's just because it's a turnover rate. And what I was told was AJ kind of has his hand in it so much that the manager just can't manage and do what he, wants to do. Usually it's a GM says, here's your team. And the manager goes, okay, I'm going to do the team as I want it. And when there's conflict between the manager and GM, they butt heads, it doesn't go well.
So in this day and age, the reality is every front office is involved in some of the responsibilities that used to be the sole purview of the manager. AJ Preller is very much someone who enjoys talking through things, has strong opinions, will go into deep conversations and fight for what he believes in about certain players. A lot of that is what has made him a very good talent evaluator over the years. There is no question there have been times that has led to conflicts with the manager. Bob Melvin, that became a dysfunctional situation where, frankly, they weren't talking by the end. That wasn't the case here. Mike Shildt, also very passionate, convicted in his beliefs. There are a lot of, passionate exchanges of opinion information, but not completely unseen in any other club, dugout. It's going to happen.
Well, I'm not saying the GM never talks during the season. It's just they have to be on the same page. They have to sometimes the GM wins and sometimes the manager wins in arguments. That's all. But they both respect each other and they both have the common goal of we want to win.
Yeah.
And this is kind of how we should win. I just think maybe we could do it with this guy. No, I think we could do it with that guy. But you have to plead your case. And then maybe when sometimes you lose an argument, you're like, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. Yeah. But then sometimes it turns around the same way. I just feel like if they're working together,
yes,
it's so much better.
There's no question. You want to have people who work together well. If you don't have a functional organization. And when we have seen that happen within the Padres. So I think when you look at this job, I think it's important to kind of list out all the pros and all the cons, right? The pros are, again, you have a team ready to win now. They've made the playoffs 4 times in 6 years, back-to-back 90-win seasons. Most of their core players are still in their productive years. Now, that's going to change within the next 2 to 3 years. But as of right now, the short-term future, a manager will be walking in with a chance to win and win a lot from the outset, which is something that's very attractive. From a baseball operations standpoint, a business operations standpoint, a facility standpoint, Padres organization is first class. all the way around. And I don't just say that because I'm hosting this podcast, again, having worked with all 30 orgs, that they really are a first-class organization. They were not always, but Peter Seidler and Eric Grupner and everyone involved deserves a lot of credit for making them one. So that makes them attractive. You have a stadium that's sold out every home game. You have high expectations. You have a beautiful city. There's a lot of pluses. The cons are, again, a lot of turnover. And you will have a lot of passionate conversations with a front office with a lot of powerful personalities, is the best way to say it. And that sometimes creates conflict. And you have some big personalities in this clubhouse who require a lot of care and handling. You mentioned a 5 or a 6. At the same time, I think it's fair to say, look, any managerial job will have a lot of candidates. And when you look at all the jobs out there, the Padres one is one of the better opportunities.
Well, I think here's the thing. When I say 5 or 6, it's kind of the stress level. But really, here's the thing. And I'm thinking mostly because here's the thing. There's been so much turnover, so it's almost like, am I going to be there long term? No, you're probably going to be there for anywhere 2 to 5 years. I don't see any manager being there for a long period of time, even if they win a World Series, unless it's like multiple World Series in 2 or 3 years. But it's one of the best cities in baseball. It's like you said, it's one of the best organizations. The fans are by far, if not the best, the second best out there. The stadium is the best stadium in the game, I think, and the atmosphere is electric. Even when you go on the road, there's Padre fans just sprout everywhere.
Yeah.
So all that part is great. The team has a chance to win a World Series this next year, the year after. That's a great part too. But how, I feel like there's some big superstars and there's some big emotional superstars. So how are you going to get them on going the same page? So I only feel like there's a few candidates that would actually take this team to the next level. And a lot of other candidates, it's almost like, I'm going to come in and they're going to tell me what to do and how to do it. And okay, I'll be fine with that. But then some people are like, no, this is how I'm going to run the ship. Even though I'm going to agree with you every single way, but it's going to be my ship, So it's, and those guys, I think the players will respect a little bit better than the other ones that come in and go, oh, just, unfortunately it's a bad term, but I'm going to say some players are going to say, oh, another puppet. Until we find the next puppet.
Yeah. Heath, I want to dive into this with you. You played for 6 different full-time managers across your career, a wide variety of guys with a lot of good track records. Some of them less so. But look, you had Art Howe as a manager. You had Ozzie Guillen as a manager. You had Kirk Gibson as a manager. Bud Black as a manager. Different experiences, very different personality types, different approaches, different styles. What to you separates the good managers from the bad managers based on your experience?
The ones that are really honest with you. I mean, plain and simple. I mean, I'll give you an example. Art Howe told me I was a young kid. I think you have some talent, but you just have to get used to wait your time. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So, and then I got Willie Randolph with the Mets, and he came in with a bunch of rules, and nothing against me. All the veteran guys, like Mo Vaughn and Pedro Martinez and Al Leiter and Tom Glavine, those guys were like, well, so-and-so's breaking the rules. So they would say, and he'd be like, well, that's part of their routine. Or like one big thing was no music in the clubhouse. Because, he came from New York, the Yankees or whatnot. But it was okay to have music on the TV, but just not on the stereo. And it's like, that's just what? It just doesn't make sense. And he's like, well, the stereo's not on. It's just the TV. So that's fine. And it's like, so all I got to do is find the gray areas. And then you get Bud Black that's laid back, but real honest with you. And he would say, hey, you need to step it up a little bit, or, hey, don't worry about it. If the situation arises, I'm going to put you back in. Or he was honest with you. And then Ozzie Guillen, I remember Ozzie Guillen, there was times that he would get mad at guys when they didn't perform, but then love them when they did perform. So it's kind of like a front runner, and he didn't have your back all the time. And then, Kirk Gibson, it was just kind of like he says he's going to do all this, but then doesn't do it. And then, and it's just, so it's just a lot of different Joe Madden was there too. And it was just a lot of like, I think the biggest thing is when you're honest, players will respect you. Like, hey, you know what? You're not hitting the ball really right now, so I'm going to give you a couple more days. So-and-so's hitting the ball, so I'm going to put him in there. But as soon as you start swinging the bat a little bit, I'm going to put you in there. I'm just giving you, take it 2-3 days to reflect and kind of get back out there. And then you do that.
Yeah.
And then guys kind of they respect you and go, okay, that's what you're saying because I'm going to lose my job. I've had coaches come to me and say, I'm not going to say what manager, but he goes, we're leading the team in most blown saves. So I'm going to switch somebody, switch who's closing. And I was closing at the time and I went, I only have one. Like, that's not me. But that was his way of saying, well, we're going to go in a different direction. But I wasn't blowing games. So it was just, it was our 7th inning guy was really struggling and we had multiple guys try that. But it's just when you're honest, guys can respect it even when they're playing like crap.
Yeah.
They kind of go, I get it. And they, I don't know, try a little harder or they usually figure it out.
Yeah, no, and again, I think there's certainly a lot of traits that the next Padres manager will have to bring, and honesty is foremost among them, being able to be real and earn the respect of a lot of those veteran players and forceful personalities. And that leads me into my next question. We will have a separate show going through the names of the candidates, but I want to focus more on the traits and characteristics. I asked AJ Preller this, in the press conference on Tuesday, just what were some of the traits and characteristics, and talked a lot about, just having just immense baseball knowledge, a lot of the things you expect to hear. One of the things I thought was interesting that he mentioned is he wants the next Padres manager to be a 10-year Padres manager. It's interesting because, as we've talked about, the average Padres manager lasts less than 2 years in the current role. But it also indicated to me they're looking for someone on the younger side, which I think there's pluses and minuses too. What do you think are the traits that will make the Padres manager the best fit for the current team, whoever they hire next?
He's going to have to be bilingual. He's going to have the respect of Tatis and Manny right off the bat. And he's got to be somewhat of a hard-nosed baseball guy, as in, hey guys, we're going to build a culture here. We're going to play hard. We're going to do the right things instead of going, just do what you want. That's where I think is going to have to come in. If you have somebody come in and trying to break balls, and that's the old term of, hey, we're going to do it this way. We're going to start hustling every ball, this and this and this. And some guys don't hustle. Well, then they need to be benched. But if you're going to say that and then your stars you're not going to do, nobody's going to respect you because your main stars don't respect you. So, and I'm not saying hustle, 100% every ground ball. We all know Manny doesn't do that, but there's a false hustle where you're running hard, but you're not super running hard. And that's fine because, when you hit the ball back to the pitcher, if you start running hard, but then he starts throwing the ball and he's going to catch it, then you kind of, you run through the bag, but you don't stop at the bag, but you don't have to run at full speed. That's just the way you play the game. And because, the older players, they don't have the legs. So you have to learn to play that way, but you have to have the respect of your stars and before you come in. So, and I feel like that's going to be hard to find a bilingual, somebody that they respect right off the bat.
Yeah, you mentioned accountability, no double standards, setting, hey, this is the culture, this is how we're going to do things, and not deviating from that, which, by the way, are all things Mike Shildt did. And the Padres had back-to-back 90-win seasons. I think that there's a lot to be said for that, and I agree with you. I think another thing for me is it has to be someone who has instant credibility in the eyes of Manny Machado, in the eyes of Fernando Tatis Jr. And that's why, for me, bringing in someone who has previous managerial experience and winning managerial experience, I do think is the right fit for this Padres team, just given where this team is in its competitive cycle. Having someone learning on the job right now, there's always nuances you just can't really prepare for until you're in the role. I think having someone who has been there, has done that, has dealt with all different personality types, all different front office types, has won amidst all different circumstances. I just think that right now, given where the Padres are, their window is open but winding down. There are different personality types in the front office that, are unique and powerful, and you have some powerful presences in the clubhouse. it would be very, very, very hard for any first-year manager to navigate that. And I really think that what will put the Padres in the best position to succeed, and whoever they hire in the best position to succeed, is someone who has been there and done that and experienced it all before.
I think they need to find a manager for the next 2 to 5 years and then have the bench coach as that young guy that's going to take over, that's going to be here. I'm not saying Bochy, he's kind of the end all, but it's somebody like that. If he would, and I think Bochy really wants to retire, but everybody tries to bring him back. But if there's a short window, like you're saying, bring somebody back somewhat like Bochy for 2 years, maybe 3, but then kind of have that young guy as the bench coach, as you're mentoring him, and then he takes off and he's your manager for the next 10 years. That's how I would do it. Just because there's a short window and the guys are somewhat in their prime still, to get all that.
How do you see internal versus external? Again, you have guys like Ruben Niebla, pitching coach, very well regarded. He has expressed interest in being a manager. You have the bench coach, Brian Esposito. You also have people who are internal in the front office. Scott Service is a special assistant, previous coach of the Mariners. People like AJ Ellis, who from the time he was, in the middle of his career, it was very obvious, this guy's going to be a big league manager someday. Like, absolutely was wired for it. You saw it coming a million miles away. Do you feel strongly about an internal candidate versus an external candidate?
See, here's the thing. Internal candidate, if he has the respect of those guys, then yes, I think it's a better fit, because the outternal, you just don't know, is he going to mesh with the guys or not. Internal, you kind of know if he kind of meshes already, and if he does mesh, I think that's where you go. But like I said, it's kind of, you need somebody that is ready now, that knows everything, is not learning along the way. And even if it's a first-time manager, but he's been coaching and he's managed other places, I don't consider him as a first-time manager, even though he's first time in the major leagues.
Very, very fair. I will say that someone like an Albert Pujols would not be a good fit for this team. They talk about his credibility as a playing career, but
I think he could fit if he was like under Bochy for like 2 years. Learn it and then go, okay, I got this.
That kind of hire would be a counterproductive mistake.
Oh, yeah.
It just would. So anyway, again, we will go deeper into candidates in another show. Heath, let's talk some actual baseball. We're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors, and then dive into what we've seen so far in the ALCS and NLCS, and if there are any applicable lessons for the Padres moving forward.
Can I interest you in Surfshark VPN, which allows you to mask certain parts of your surfing around the web? Or let's say you're somewhere and you're like, I don't need this app to know where I am 24/7. That pops up on your phone all the time. Surfshark can help you out with that.
Privacy and protection. I love it.
Surfshark keeps your online activity private, and you can appear in a different location. That's where you can get help with the online services or apps that are constantly asking you where you are. Change or hide your virtual location and surf safely with Surfshark VPN. So go to surfshark.com/Fowler. Use code Fowler at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. A risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee is there for you, and you can secure your digital life with Surfshark VPN by hitting the link below for an extra 4 months of Surfshark. Don't let online threats catch you off guard. This has been your tech update. Keep your data safe and take control of your online security with Surfshark.
Welcome back to Friar Territory, presented by Fox One. All right, Heath, the Mariners are up 2-0 on the Toronto Blue Jays. They return to Seattle for Game 3 tonight. The Dodgers are up 2-0 over the Milwaukee Brewers. They will return home to LA. Game 3 is on Thursday. I want to start with the NLCS and what we've seen from the Dodgers starting pitchers. Blake Snell, 8 dominant innings in the opener. And of course, last night, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, a complete game, just utter dominance, and really what was super impressive. I think what's been enjoyable to watch is, and look, I'm a big believer in, greatness is rare, enjoy it. Because the Dodgers bullpen is so terrible, it has forced them to let their starting pitchers go longer, and they've answered the bell. We saw it even in the Red Series with Yamamoto. And it has been nice to me because I think sometimes people just automatically say, third time through the order, let's take them out. And to me, that's managing scared. It's not managing smart. It's been good to see them let these guys go because they kind of had to, and they've answered the bell.
Well, I mean, if you think back, Blake Snell, when he was with Tampa, the third time through the lineup against LA, he was dominating, and they pulled him, and Tampa ended up losing, and they ended up losing the World Series to the Dodgers. But it's kind of like, I like the playoffs right now because it's the starters are going the distance. The stars are going 6, 7, 8 innings. And it's like kind of how it was back in the day. Your main guys were your starters, not, okay, starters just got to get to the 4th or 5th, and then we'll hand it over to the bullpen. Then it's just, power, power, power. It's actually pitching. It's breaking ball. It's changeups. It's hitting in the ball, inside, outside. And, as a pitcher, it's really fun to watch. It really is.
Yeah. And again, I think it's one of those situations where we see so often now teams, if they let a guy go third time through the order, God forbid he allows a single, they ain't him. You have to be almost perfect. And when you have the expectation of someone, it's not a recipe for success. And I think, again, yes, you absolutely understand that over the course of the entire history of the game, third time through the order, hitters have an advantage over pitchers. Anyone who is hit at any level understands that. The more you see a guy, the more comfortable you get against him, and the better off you'll be. But you also have to take the micro inputs into account. You have the big macro level inputs, but also the micro level inputs of what does this pitcher do the third time through the order? What kind of swings is he getting? What strike zone is the umpire calling? Is he giving him an extra inch off the plate? What's the state of your bullpen? What's the score? All these things go into it. And too often people in the game treat it as this blanket, third time through the order, you got to put some guy in, some reliever in, regardless. The reality is you have those micro level inputs are every bit as important as those macro level inputs. You have to watch what's happening. You have to take account of the situation in front of you. And the Dodgers have let their guys go. And it's been great to see. And frankly, it's been smart managing and smart baseball. And look, their offense has not given them a ton of room, but the pitching staff has stepped up, and it's been really enjoyable to watch.
Well, everybody remembers Moneyball. Good movie. It's come out of a lot of people, David Justice, totally not true. It's movie ties. But yeah, everything that Billy Beane and there or, Brad Pitt said, over a course of a long season, this works. But at the very end, he said, over a short series, it doesn't work. So in the playoffs, like in a small series, like you said, it's sometimes, hitters up there and they're just look dumb for the first 2 at bats are not going to be miraculously, oh, I'm so much better. I got him the third time. During the course of a season, yeah, you get them, but then you have the magnitude. It's the National League Championship. I got to get, all that other stuff that, math does not equate. So I think the way the Dodgers are doing it, letting their guys go out there a little bit more and showing that trust, it's fun to watch. It really is, because it just reminds me of the 90s starting pitchers like CeCe Basson or, just all the different pitchers, the Braves pitchers of just like, man, you're going to win when Maddox and Smoltz go or Pedro's going. Well, are they going to win if they have so-and-so going? And all of a sudden he comes up big and you're just like, whoa, he pitched out of his, shoes. So it's just been fun to watch having the starters go a long distance.
And also Bryce Miller on short rest game 1 for the Mariners, coming off, 15-inning win, needing to give the bullpen a break, going out throwing 6 strong innings. Fantastic for Seattle. Mariners taking the wood to the Blue Jays in game 2. It's been really, really impressive. But it goes back to what I talk about. I see a lot of analyses out there. And look, I did these analyses when I was at BA about, okay, how effective are bullpen games actually? And when you just look at it in a vacuum of like, oh, when they throw a bullpen game, last time I did the math, it was something like the ERA, and one of them is 3.30, which is actually pretty good. But you have to remember that it's not just about what happened that day. It's, okay, what is the cost of that in the future using 6, 7 guys to get through a game? And what you have talked about is if you do that by the second week, the end of the second week, your bullpen is worn out. And we see that very frequently. Look back to Brewers in 2018. They ran out of gas in the NLCS. I think a little bit about, some of the Guardians/Indians bullpens. They've done that. You have to get good outings from your starters. If you are using openers or bullpen games multiple times a series, you can get away with it once a series. If you're doing it multiple times in a series, your guys are going to burn out. And we've started to see that happen a little bit here to the Brewers.
Yeah, the Brewers have been riding a wave, and they've I just feel like they're just getting a little tired. That's all. When you watch them, they just feel like they're getting a little tired. That's all. I feel like they're capable of beating the Dodgers, but it just almost like it's kind of like when Manny at the end of the season, his bat was a little slow. And it's like, dude, he just needs a day off or two. And then when he came back, he was ready to go. And I just feel like the Brewers are just a little tired. That's all.
And it's tough because the chance for them to give their bullpen a rest was Freddie Peralta in game 2 and didn't have a great outing, didn't last super long, and they had to use a lot of bullpen arms anyway. So I do think if you look at the Dodgers and the Mariners right now, they're both sitting pretty up 2-0, both coming home. I think of the Mariners especially too, taking those first 2 games in Toronto was so huge because now you can have your ridiculous starting pitchers fully rested coming back home, getting the outing they did from Bryce Miller. Game 3 now, George Kirby's on full rest. Then Luis Castillo is going to be on full rest. I mean, these guys on full rest are disgusting. And I think with what the Dodgers starting pitchers are doing and what the Mariners pitching did for them, particularly in game 1, but also to a degree in game 2, both these teams are in great shape. And I do expect both of them to close their series out here at home and give us a Dodgers-Mariners World Series. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I just feel like, you have your main guys and they're coming home and they're well rested. That's just kind of a perfect storm, unfortunately.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Crazier things have happened in this game, wild comebacks, but there's no question the Dodgers and Mariners are sitting pretty right now. And once again, we're seeing that as you get deeper in the postseason, having effective starts from your starting pitchers is so huge, and not just openers or we're getting 3 bulk innings or even 5 1/3. Having your guys go consistently 6, 7, or 8, 9. It makes a world of difference in keeping all of your arms fresh and better equipped to compete over the long postseason.
And it tells like a lot with your offense. You don't score and your starter goes out there and he's just shoving the first 2 to 3 innings. Your offense literally is like, hey, he's going to carry us. We just need to get a run or 2.
Yeah.
Where if it's kind of like everybody's scoring, it's like, oh, we got to outscore the other team.
And again, it makes a big difference. Last thing I'll say, again, third time through the order, I think my favorite memory of it, and I wrote about what happened with Snell in the 2020 World Series, but it was actually the 2023 World Series. I was covering it between Diamondbacks and Rangers. It was game 5. Zach Gallen had a no-hitter through 6. Nate Eovaldi was pitching really well as well. And Zach Gallen, the 7th inning, third time through the order, lost the no-hitter, and the Rangers took the lead. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, third time through the order, it can't be done. Meanwhile, ignoring the fact Nate Eovaldi completely maneuvered through the third time through the D-backs order without a problem. Again, you have to watch every individual situation and make a judgment based on that. You need to be aware of the macro level data, but you also have to take into account those micro level inputs. And the best teams do that, and the best teams are the ones that win. And right now, we're seeing it. The teams that are letting their starting pitchers ride are the ones that are in the best position to reach the World Series.
And there's one thing to think about. So Nolan Ryan, when he was a GM with the Texas Rangers, he found out that guys, starting pitchers, would literally say, he'd go, hey, how do you feel? And they'd be like, well, how many pitches I have? Well, you have 80 pitches. I got to want 1 more. So psychologically, they were already thinking. So if you're always thinking psychologically, you can't get through the third time through the batting order. Doesn't matter how good your stuff is, you're going to start second guessing stuff. Yeah. And some guys don't do that. And some guys do, because they're like, well, okay, am I going to be able to do this or not? So I just feel like, everybody's individually different. That's why they have, the old school talking of pitching. You have the big game pitcher and you have the guy that goes out and can win 15, 20 games. But in the big games, he kind of crumbles.
Well, we'll see if the Dodgers and Mariners big game pitchers step up. I do not expect them to crumble. Should be fun. Again, I enjoy watching great baseball, and we'll see what these two teams are able to do, or if the Brewers and Blue Jays, the top seeds in each league, are able to mount comebacks. Heath, this has been a great time as always. Any final thoughts as we wrap up the Padres managerial show here?
No, I just hope we pick a good manager, and my gut instincts, it's going to be in-house. And I think it'll be the right decision.
Yeah, Jay Preller said as of yesterday, they were starting to put a list of candidates together, did not have a set timeline for when they wanted to make a hire. They're going to go through the process, interview everyone thoroughly that they believe is a good candidate, and however long it takes. But The process, for all intents and purposes, has begun. We will see how it all shakes out. Once again, this has been another edition of Friar Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. Go ahead and give us a review, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever platform you're watching and listening on. We would love to hear from you. Rate us 5 stars, leave a comment, all the good stuff. For Heath Bell, I'm Kyle Glaser. Thanks for watching and listening. We will be back Friday with a check-in on the Padres players in the Arizona Fall League. Take care.